I finally completed Shadow of the Erdtree after 130 hours. I've seen everybody give this a 10 out of 10 all across the board, but I have some very mixed feelings after beating it. Put your pitchforks down from soft fanboys. I know there's some of you who think this developer is free from criticism, and if you didn't like something in their games, then it's a skill issue, but don't worry. I have mixed feelings, yes, but 90% of them are positive. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent over 100 hours playing it. The best way I can describe this DLC for me is the highs are extremely high, but the lows are very low. So let's start with the negatives because it's not that many. I only have 2 issues with the DLC. The way they chose to go about making the DLC more difficult, I think kind of exposed Elden Ring's weak point where the base game hit it moderately well, which is the camera and its tracking. The camera has gotten me killed more times than I can count in this DLC, which is obviously frustrating because it's not my fault. When one of the things I loved about the base game is that it felt fair, because when I died, I know I did something wrong. This time I was being fucked over by something that's not my fault. The second issue are the bosses, which is linked to my problem with the camera. So the 3 changes they made to bosses in the DLC after pretty much fighting all of them. They're more mobile, they'll get around the arenas very quick and close the distance to you extremely fast. 2, their attack frequency is much higher and combos are longer, so you have a smaller window to deal damage or heal before they start attacking again. And lastly, their attacks have a lot more elemental and status effects going on. Now with these changes, I think they nailed most of the bosses and they're extremely fun to fight, had me on the edge of my seat. And a few were some of the most unenjoyable fights I've had, and they actually tanked my experience and made me not feel like playing while fighting them. The 2 most unenjoyable fights go to Mesmer and Radahn. But I also didn't like the Hippo and Commander Gaius. Those weren't, well, the Hippo wasn't hard, it was just really annoying because it was a huge enemy moving around all the time. And Commander Gaius, I swear something's wrong with those hitboxes because I would be dodging, but he'd still just sweep me up and kill me. But the Mesmer fight, I could adapt to some of the moves, but the attacks that have the flame effects going on everywhere, and then he'd immediately follow up with a physical attack, which I can't see because the fires everywhere killed me so many times, and got even worse in phase 2 with the snake moving around. My problem is there's so much fire and effects going on, some of the attacks were hard to read, and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Along with the fact that the camera couldn't track some of them. If they moved too fast or they were too close to you, my character would actually like go into the boss or get covered by their clothes, and I couldn't see, so I couldn't dodge. So Mesmer's attacks were hard to read is my issue with him. Fuck that fight. Now Radahn I hate even more, but for a different reason. I was beyond disappointed by this fight as the final fight. Like, I get it, it's the last boss and you want it to be challenging. Phase 1, when you get to know the moves, it's hard, but you know, it's fine. But phase 2 was just bullshit. Again, attacks that are hard to read, there's effects everywhere. I'm just like, I don't know how to read any of this or what is going on, and my game turned into a slideshow every time he did certain AoE attacks, so it wasn't well optimized. I saw a lot of people throwing around the narrative of bad boss design in the DLC, but no one really explains in detail what they meant. But after meeting some of the bosses, I understand the frustration now. The entire game is challenging, but there's fun challenging, and then there's whatever this is. After being stuck at Radahn for a few days, I went online looking for tips because clearly I was doing something wrong, and I saw the same answer show up every single time. On YouTube, Reddit, gaming blogs, doesn't matter, it was the same. Either use the Ant Spur sword with a bleed build, or make a strength endurance build with the heaviest shield that you have. Which, to me, is the flaw of this boss. When you make a game that promotes playing any way you want and use your own build, and you design a boss that nullifies that and kind of forces players that are struggling into one of 2 builds with one weapon as a solution, that's a problem. A lot of Magic users switched their stats. I was using a Faith build for the first time, and I had to go back to my Bleed build, which I didn't want to do because I was enjoying the Faith build. That's what I was disappointed by. I didn't finish the DLC with the build I started with or with the weapons I wanted to because of the way this boss is designed. I saw so many other Magic and Faith users being like, yeah, they didn't use their spells because you really don't have the time to, since the boss attacks so fast. And I know there are people who are going to say, oh, you know, they beat it with their build and it was fine. Great for you, but again, for me, this was not a fun fight. And by the time I beat Radahn, I didn't feel like triumphant or like I'm glad it's over. I just felt nothing. I was so over that fight. And then after all of that, we just get this little 20-second cutscene, and that's it. That's the end of Elden Ring. But apart from that disappointing end and a few boss fights I hated, I enjoyed the fuck out of this DLC. I enjoyed all the other bosses. Ramina, the Dancing Lions, Rellana was great, and Bale was hands down my favorite. People online were saying if you use summons, you are cheating or playing on easy mode. I don't care for that. Use whatever you want. But I knew I really enjoyed a boss fight when I didn't want to use my summons. I just wanted to throw hands 1v1, and I did it with all of the bosses I just mentioned above. And had I listened to people and not used summons, I would have missed out on two of my favorite moments and fights. I'm fighting for my life against a 600-foot dragon, and all I'm hearing from the corner is, "Curse you, Bale!" I love that fight. I'm trying to survive, and Egon is having an entire anime monologue. We kill the dragon, he screams and then just dies on the spot. Bale's phase 2 where his wings come out and he circles the arena and then the music is kicking off. That was just peak Elden Ring. I love that moment. The other one was fighting Letta in the sand pit. It's a 3v3. We're all just fighting each other. It was great. I enjoyed the group fights. I hope they do more of that in their future games. But the music in the DLC it's so good. I don't even remember the music in the base game, but they really stepped it up for these fights. And the other thing that was done better than the base game to me was the level design. The map was said to be as big as Limgrave, but that's a lie. As we know, it's like Limgrave, Caelid, and the lake all together, and then those are just stacked on top of each other. So this game is pretty much just Elden Ring 2. I had an amazing time exploring since it's like 5 different biomes stacked on top of each other really well. I had to learn to read the map to be able to tell where I can access new routes, since some of the areas can only be accessed by caves or going down ladders, which are covered on the map. So you really have to go exploring to find some of the new regions. The depth and verticality of the map was insane. I don't know how they built this in 2 years. I love this map because it felt like I was rewarded for my curiosity. I'd see something, I knew I can go there, but I just had to figure out how. Like finding St. Trina is down a hole in the ground leading to an underground cavern. And then you jump off a cliff, like when Kratos steps off of Mount Olympus, and there's a boss waiting for you all the way down there. Like you go so far down. Again, I just love the verticality and sense of scale. The other thing I was amazed by is when you drain the water from inside Shadowkeep and it reveals an entire town down there that you were just traversing on top of. You find an elevator that carries you to a bridge deep underground, and then that's where you find the Erdtree avatar. A boss that can revive itself 3 times and gets more mobile and new moves with every revive, by the way. And I still enjoyed fighting that more than Radahn and Mesmer. Like every time I killed it, I was like, all right, I beat it, but where's the boss felt sign? And then that thing would just sprout out the ground again. I really like fighting that and the Death Knights too. There's this one move where if they catch you, they'll drain your health and fill theirs, pretty much just starting over the fight. And it's still, you know, like even with a move like that, I found it fun. So for 95% of the bosses, they toed the line well between challenging and fun. So I ended up looking for and actually beating all of the bosses in DLC because I enjoyed them that much. Which I guess is not really a critique, but I guess a quality of life thing I'd like to see in the future. Just make a separate mode where we can go back and fight bosses. Like I would want to go back and fight a lot of bosses without going through the entire game again. And I ended up downloading a mod which lets me do that. I can just pick a boss, revive it, and then go fight it again. So yeah, I'd really like to see a mode like that added in future games, because it should be in this one. The other thing about this DLC is that it's not as colorful as the base game. Like every region doesn't have its own color scheme, but the environments themselves are, I think they're much better. I feel like they took inspiration from the older games. This reminded me of Bloodborne a lot. The architecture looks more gothic, there's huge cathedrals and castles, but Shadowkeep especially. I love the aesthetic of that entire place and the multi-level library. The entire theme of the DLC, it's like it mixes horror but still makes it look beautiful. So these you know, the juxtaposition of these two themes, it's everywhere. It's in the environment, the boss designs, and even in the music, especially in the Graveyard Plains. But I'll cover all of this in a different video where I can nerd out about this game's art design and stuff. The Abyssal Woods, though, creeped me out. They did a total 180. No torrent, no music, it's just you and silence and a bunch of fog. It was pretty creepy, and then, you know, started seeing messages saying, don't let them see you. I was like, who the fuck is they? And then I met them, and I didn't like them, not one bit. Fuck those things. The mansion in the woods was cool. I was taking screenshots of everything. I have so many pictures from this DLC. It's a crime that they made this game look so unique and then just decided to not put in a photo mode, which is a weird decision, but yeah, Midra had the coolest cinematic. I think I went in there like, you know, who the fuck is this? Then I killed the old man. And then the real boss came out. And I was like, I shouldn't have been talking shit. That boss fight, that boss fight took me like 2 hours. But it was cool design. It was great. I love the woods. I'll admit I didn't touch the entire left side of the map until like 100 hours in. I hate scorpions and shit like that. And I went up those big steps, and yeah, you know what the fuck was waiting for me up there. I lost my shit when that spider attacked me in the dark. I don't know who was the sick bastard at that studio that decided, hey, let's make a scorpion and spider hybrid enemy, but fuck y'all. This tells you how much I like this game, because any game that has enemy types like that, I will uninstall and refund without hesitation. But I faced my fears for this game. The hand creepers were bad enough, but these just made it so much worse. But I pushed through. I was looking at my monitor out the corner of my eyes and looking away, and still pushing forward. Thank God I had a faith build to do range attacks, because I will tell you now, I never beat one of those things with my sword. They never got close to me. You know, they hit them on the ceiling too, so they drop down and scare the fuck out of you, which they did. But lastly, the new weapon types. I really like the light great sword. I swapped between the, what is it? I think it's called the My Lady sword and the relic sword for most of this playthrough, and then I used Relana's twin sword so I could have 2 flame swords. I just love the animation and swings from the light great swords. It just looks, you know, kind of fancy and elegant shit. I thought I'd like the perfume bottles and the beast claws the most, but I didn't like them all that much, surprisingly. And then I got the smithing arts throwing weapons, and they weren't doing it for me either, but at least they looked cool. And the pole blade that you get from the Black Knight captains was pretty good. I actually beat Radahn with that weapon. And the other favorite weapon of mine was the Death Knight's axe. I'm so mad that I found it so late in the game. Otherwise, I probably would have used this most of my playthrough. That blink and teleport slam ability it's pretty fun. I like the dual axes too, but the tracking on the spin attack was like 50-50. Sometimes it hit, other times it miss. Also, I didn't have new animations for that, so yeah, I just went with the taller single axe. But overall, really enjoyed the DLC, except the ending. And I know some people were mad at the ending for lore reasons. They wanted it to be Godfrey instead of Radahn, and I don't really have a stake in that because I'm still watching some of the lore videos now. But yeah, this was an amazing experience, just like the first time playing the base game. Yes, this game's an experience. It's more than a game, well, to me at least. Would I recommend this? If you love Elden Ring, yeah, it's pretty much Elden Ring 2 with better level design and environmental design, but it's way harder. So if you struggled during the base game, like right up until the end, I wouldn't recommend this for you. Only get this DLC if you are really about it, because these enemies hit hard and fast, and it's so stressful. I'm not gonna lie to you. If you are a below average player and you like need co-op, maybe stay away from this. So if you made it this far, what do you think about the DLC? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.